My name is Mara Vance. I am 27 years old, and I restore damaged photographs and old family records in Portland, Oregon. Most mornings, my work is quiet. I bring faded faces back into focus. I repair torn wedding pictures, burned birth certificates, water-stained letters, and the kind of memories people are terrified of losing. But this morning, my own past found me before I even touched my coffee. My phone was flashing on the kitchen counter with 113 missed calls and texts from two people I had buried so deep in my life that I almost convinced myself they were gone forever. The contact name said Mom and Dad, but those words had not meant safety to me since I was 12 years old. My hands went cold before I opened a single message, because some memories do not return slowly. They hit like a door being kicked open. 1 second I was standing in my quiet apartment. The next I was back at a desert gas station in the middle of nowhere, squinting through the heat, watching the family car roll away while the people inside laughed like my terror was the funniest thing they had ever seen. They did not lose me. They did not forget me. They left me there on purpose and turned it into a bet. I still remember the voice saying maybe this would finally teach me something. I remember another voice laughing that I would not even find the road back. I had no phone, almost no money, and no idea how far home was. That day split my life into two versions: the girl they abandoned and the woman who never returned. 15 years later, they finally found me, and this time, they were the ones begging. Before I tell you what those 113 messages said, tell me this. What is the weather like where you are today? And does it feel anything like the mood this story just put you in? I was not born Mara Vance. Back then, my name was Elise Carver, and I grew up in Quartz Bend, Nevada, a dry little highway town where every building looked sunburned and every family knew how to pretend in public. My parents owned a towing garage, a small roadside motel, and a repair lot full of broken cars they swore they would fix one day. To outsiders, we looked like a hard-working family. People saw my father shaking hands with stranded travelers, my mother smiling behind the motel desk, and me standing quietly beside them like a well-trained child. They called us tough. They called us respectable. They said my parents were raising me with grit. But inside our house, grit was just the pretty word they used for fear. Everything was a lesson. If I spilled juice, I had to clean the whole kitchen while my mother watched the clock. If I forgot to fold towels for the motel rooms, my father made me stand outside the office until I could explain why lazy people ruined businesses. If I cried, they said I was embarrassing myself. If I stayed quiet, they said I was sulking. There was no right answer, only the answer that made them laugh the least. They loved making bets on me. Not big dramatic bets, just little cruel ones said with smiles over coffee or dinner. My mother would say $5 says she apologizes before bedtime. My father would say 10 says she cries first. They made my fear into entertainment so often that I started feeling like a guest in my own body. When I was 8, I got lost behind the motel laundry room after my mother told me to carry sheets that were too heavy for me. Instead of looking for me right away, she waited almost an hour and then told me that panic was what happened to girls who did not pay attention. When I was 10, my father left me alone beside a closed tire shop because I forgot to bring him the right receipt from the office. He came back after sunset with a burger for himself and asked if I had learned not to waste his time. By the time I was 12, I had learned to read footsteps, voices, cabinet doors, and the way silence changed before something bad happened. The only thing that felt like mine was a dusty box of old photographs I found in the storage room behind the motel. They had been left behind by travelers over the years. Wedding pictures, baby pictures, family portraits with names written on the back. I used to sit on the floor and clean them with tissue, trying to guess who those people were and whether they were missed. I think that was the first time I understood that memories mattered. Even damaged ones. Especially damaged ones. That spring, a librarian from the next town saw a school project I had made from restored photos and recommended me for a summer archive program. It was only 4 weeks. It was free. To me, it felt like somebody had opened a window in a locked room. I brought the form home folded in my backpack and waited until dinner to ask. My mother stared at it like I had handed her a bill. My father laughed once, not because it was funny, but because he wanted me to know the answer was already no. He said I had responsibilities at the garage. My mother said people like us did not waste summers playing with dead strangers' pictures. For the first time in my life, I pushed back. My voice shook, but I said I did not want to spend my whole life cleaning up after their business. The room went so still that I knew I had made a mistake before the words were fully out. My mother placed her fork down carefully. My father leaned back in his chair and looked at me with that amused expression that always meant he had already decided how I would pay. He said maybe I needed to learn what being on my own really felt like. My mother looked at him and smiled in a way that made my stomach turn. She said maybe the lesson needed to happen somewhere. I could not run home so easily. The next morning, they acted cheerful. Too cheerful. My mother packed sandwiches. My father filled the gas tank. They said we were taking a family drive toward the lake near the state line. Just the 3 of us. A fresh start after all my attitude. I wanted to believe them because children are built to hope, even when hope keeps hurting them. But as I climbed into the back seat and watched Quartz Bend shrink behind us, I felt something cold settle under my ribs. They were not taking me on a trip. They were taking me to a lesson. The first hour of the drive was almost normal, and somehow that made it worse. My father kept the radio loud, tapping the steering wheel like he was in a great mood. My mother turned around from the passenger seat every few minutes with questions that sounded casual but landed like traps. Did I think I was grown now? Did I think strangers cared about my little dreams? Did I think the world rewarded girls who talked back to their parents? I stared at my knees and tried to answer carefully, but every answer entertained them. If I said no, they laughed because I sounded scared. If I stayed quiet, my mother said silence was not maturity. It was weakness wearing a mask. My phone was not with me. She had taken it before we left, saying family time did not require screens. I had $4 and some coins in my pocket from tips I had found in motel rooms. I had no map, no water bottle of my own, and no idea where we were going except farther and farther away from anything familiar. The road stretched out in front of us like it had no end. Houses disappeared first, then gas stations, then the little clusters of buildings that made me feel like people were still nearby. After a while, there was only highway, pale dirt, hard sky, and the occasional truck passing with a hot blast of wind. My father talked about survival like it was a hobby. He said people had gotten soft because they expected rescue. My mother said the trouble with children was that they mistook comfort for love. I remember pressing my fingernails into my palm because pain I chose felt safer than fear I could not control. Around midday, we pulled into a place called Sagebrush Stop. It was less a gas station than a tired building clinging to the edge of the road. 2 pumps, a cracked ice machine, a small convenience store with faded signs in the window, a bathroom around the side. Beyond it, nothing but desert and a highway that shimmered in the heat. My father parked beside the pump and told me to get out and stretch my legs. My mother said they were going inside to buy drinks and ask about a shortcut to the lake. I reached for the door handle to follow them, but she turned so fast I froze. She said I was 12, not a toddler, and I could stand outside for 5 minutes without making a scene. My father smiled at me over the roof of the car. Not warm, not kind, just waiting. So I nodded and stood near the front of the store while they walked inside. I watched them through the glass at first. My mother picked up a bottle of water. My father spoke to the cashier. Then a truck pulled between me and the window, blocking my view for a few seconds. When it moved, they were not inside anymore. I looked toward the bathrooms. Nothing. I looked toward the pumps. The car was gone. At first, I told myself they had moved it to the other side. Then I told myself maybe they were checking the tires. Then maybe they had driven around back. The lies came quickly because the truth was too big to touch. 15 minutes passed, then 30. The heat pressed against my face and arms until my skin felt tight. I walked to the edge of the building, then hurried back because they had told me to stay near the front. Even abandoned, I was still scared of disobeying. A man in a baseball cap walked past and asked if I was all right. I said yes so fast he barely slowed down. My throat was dry, but I did not go inside to ask for water. My mother had trained shame into me so deeply that needing help felt like doing something wrong. After almost an hour, I saw our car coming back down the road. My whole body flooded with relief so sharp it almost hurt. I stepped away from the wall and lifted my hand. For 1 second, I thought the lesson was over. I thought they would unlock the doors, tell me I looked ridiculous, laugh, and let me climb back into the air conditioning. I thought I had survived whatever tests they had planned. Then the car slowed beside me, and the passenger window rolled down. My mother did not look worried. My father did not look sorry. They looked pleased, like they had been waiting for that exact look on my face. The car stopped long enough for me to see them clearly. I stepped toward the back door, but it stayed locked. My mother crossed her arms and tilted her head through the open window. She said maybe this would finally teach me something. My father laughed from behind the wheel and said he would bet I could not even find the road back. My mother smiled and said, $20 said I would cry before sunset. Then my father lifted 2 fingers from the wheel in a little goodbye wave, and the car rolled forward. I ran after it. Not far, because I was 12 and the pavement was hot, and the car gained speed fast. But I ran until my chest burned and my voice cracked. I yelled for them to stop. I yelled that I was sorry, even though I did not know what apology could fix being left in the desert. The car got smaller, then turned into a flash of light, then disappeared. That was the moment I understood something no child should ever have to understand. They had not lost me. They had not forgotten me. My fear was not an accident, it was the point. I walked back to the station because there was nowhere else to go. Every sound felt too loud. The pumps clicking, the soda machine humming, tires passing on the highway. My heart hit so hard against my ribs I thought people could hear it. I sat beside the ice machine because there was a thin strip of shade there. I had $4 in my pocket, but I was afraid to spend it wrong. I was afraid they would come back and scream that I had moved. I was afraid they would never come back at all. The desert was not like a mall parking lot or the edge of town. There were no familiar streets nearby, no neighbor who might recognize me. If I walked, I could go the wrong way until the sun took everything out of me. If I stayed, I might still be there after dark. I knew enough to be terrified, but not enough to save myself. That was the cruelest part. My parents had spent years teaching me that asking for help was weakness, then left me in a place where asking for help was the only smart thing to do. I tried to be invisible. I paced near the window. I pretended to read faded posters. I splashed water on my face in the bathroom and felt guilty for using it without buying anything. Every time a car slowed, hope punched through me and vanished. I told 2 people I was waiting for my parents. The lie sounded smaller each time. The third person did not accept it. She was the woman behind the counter, older than my mother, with dark hair pulled back and tired eyes that had seen too many people pretend they were fine. She came outside with a cup of water and asked how long I had been waiting. I said a few minutes. She looked at the sun, then my face, then my shaking hands. She said, "Honey, I saw you here before the lunch rush." That was when I broke. I cried so hard I could barely breathe, but she did not laugh. She guided me inside, sat me near the counter, and put water in front of me. Her name tag said Nora. She asked my name, my age, where I lived, and whether I knew the car. I told her enough for her face to change. She locked the side door, told another employee to watch the register, and called the highway patrol. While we waited, she gave me crackers and said I was not in trouble. I did not believe her. Children like me always believed we were in trouble because that was the safest assumption. When the officer arrived, he asked gentle questions, but his expression hardened as I answered. He asked if my parents might have misunderstood and thought I was in the car. I shook my head. I told him they came back. I told him the window rolled down. I told him about the bet. Nora pointed to the camera above the pump and said the station recorded everything. I thought the worst thing that day was watching the car disappear. I was wrong. The worst part came when the police called them and they still did not come back. The officer took me into the little office behind the register while Nora pulled up the security footage. I sat in a metal chair with my feet not quite touching the floor and watched adults speak in low voices. On the monitor, the truth appeared without emotion. Our car pulling in, me getting out, my parents walking away, the car leaving while I stood near the store. Almost an hour later, the car returning, the window lowering, me stepping forward, the car leaving again, me running after it. There was no misunderstanding in that footage. No accident. No version for anyone to hide behind. The officer asked for my home number, my parents' names, the motel name, anything I remembered. I gave him everything because I still thought the right answers might make the world make sense again. When he reached them, I could only hear his side of the call. At first, his voice was professional. Then it changed. He asked if they understood where they had left me. He asked if they were turning around immediately. Then he went quiet. Finally, he said, "No, sir. This is not a lesson in independence. This is child abandonment." The words took the air out of the room. Child abandonment, not attitude, not drama, not me being too sensitive. A real phrase adults used when something wrong had happened to a child. My father must have argued because the officer's jaw tightened. My mother must have taken the phone because he said, "Ma'am, a 12-year-old without a phone or water does not belong alone at a desert gas station." Then he listened again and looked at me through the office window with pity and anger mixed together. They said they were almost at the lake. They said I knew enough to ask for help if I really needed it. They said coming back too quickly would reward hysteria. That was when everything changed. I was no longer a child waiting to be picked up. I was evidence. A social worker arrived before sunset. She explained that because my parents had left me in a dangerous location and refused to return immediately, I would not be sent home that night. I heard the words, but my mind caught on one thing: not home. The idea of sleeping somewhere else terrified me. My parents had told me stories about children taken by the state. They said those kids were liars, brats, troublemakers. So when the social worker said emergency placement, I thought it meant punishment. Instead, it meant Caleb and June Vance. I met them later that night in a small office with fluorescent lights and a vending machine buzzing in the corner. Caleb was broad-shouldered, sun-worn, and quiet. He worked highway rescue, which meant he had pulled stranded drivers out of places like the one I had been left in. June was a pediatric nurse with gentle hands and a voice that did not corner me. Neither rushed toward me with fake cheer. Neither demanded a hug. Caleb crouched a few feet away and said he was sorry I had been left out there. Not sorry that I felt bad. Sorry it happened. June asked if I wanted soup or toast when we got to their house. I did not know how to answer because nobody had asked what I wanted without using it against me later. Their house was small, warm, and ordinary. Shoes by the door. A half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. A hallway light June left on after asking if darkness bothered me. In the guest room, there was a glass of water on the nightstand. That glass nearly made me cry again. My own parents had left me in the heat to prove a point. Strangers had remembered I might wake up thirsty. I barely slept. Every car outside made me sit up. Every whisper through the vent sounded like someone leaving. But nobody came in to yell. Nobody laughed from the doorway. Nobody called me weak. In the morning, Caleb made pancakes without acting like breakfast was a reward. June asked if I wanted to sit near the window or away from it. Small choices, safe choices, things I had not known children were allowed to have. Over the next few days, there were interviews, phone calls, statements, and meetings. I kept waiting for someone to say I exaggerated, but each adult who watched the footage became more serious. Each person who read the report asked about what had happened before the gas station. Once I started answering, the story did not sound like one bad day anymore. It sounded like a pattern. It sounded like danger practiced for years. The next time I saw my parents, it was not at home. It was in a courtroom, and for the first time in my life, they were not the only adults with power in the room. My parents came to court dressed like people who believed appearance could erase facts. My mother wore a cream blouse and neat earrings, like she was attending a school meeting instead of a hearing about leaving her child in the desert. My father wore his good boots and crossed his arms every time someone said safety. They did not look ashamed. They looked offended. That bothered me more than anger would have. Anger would have meant they understood something serious had happened. Offended meant they still thought they were the victims. They did not deny leaving me at Sagebrush Stop. They admitted it almost proudly. My father said it had been controlled. My mother said it had been necessary. They both said I had become disrespectful and needed resilience. The judge asked if they understood the risk. My father said people survived worse every day. My mother said fear was a useful teacher. I sat beside the social worker and stared at the table because looking at them made my stomach hurt. Then the therapist's report was read. Emotional abuse, humiliation, neglect, escalating endangerment, use of fear as discipline. Those words were heavy, but they were clean. They cut through all the family language my parents used to make cruelty sound normal. Lessons, tough love, character, grit. Suddenly, those words looked like costumes thrown over something ugly. The court offered a path toward reunification. Parenting classes, supervised visits, family therapy, home checks, regular reviews. A chance to prove they could change. They could have chosen me. They could have said they were wrong, even if they did not feel it yet. Instead, my father asked what this would do to his towing contracts. My mother asked who would have access to private family matters. They were more humiliated by oversight than frightened by losing me. A few weeks later, they chose to voluntarily surrender their parental rights, rather than complete the reunification plan. People think the worst part of abandonment is the first leaving. Sometimes it is the second. The first time, they left me at a gas station. The second time, they left me in a courthouse because admitting fault cost more pride than I was worth to them. I did not scream when I heard it. Something inside me went still, like a door quietly locking. After that, life moved forward in careful steps. The Vances became my foster family, then my almost family, then my real family, long before the paper said so. Caleb never tried to replace anything by force. He taught me how to read maps, check mileage signs, keep water in a car, and ask for help without shame. He did not teach survival by frightening me. He taught it by standing beside me. June took me to therapy and never demanded I be grateful. She knocked before entering my room. She asked before touching my shoulder. She believed me on days when I could not explain why I was scared. Healing was not pretty. I hated gas stations for years. I hated heat above pavement. I hated the phrase, "I will be right back." If June went to the store and said she would return in 15 minutes, my body did not care that she was kind. My body remembered waiting. Therapy gave me language for that. Trauma, hypervigilance, emotional abuse, abandonment. At first, the words made me feel broken. Later, they made me feel mapped. You cannot find your way out of something if nobody lets you name where you are. When the adoption became official, I was asked if I wanted to keep my name. Elise Carver felt like a girl standing under a gas station sign with dust in her shoes and terror in her throat. Mara Vance felt like someone who might survive long enough to become more than what happened to her. So I chose Mara. June cried when the judge approved it. Caleb did not cry until the parking lot, where he hugged me carefully and said I could change my mind about anything in life except how much they wanted me. I carried that sentence for years. The summer archive program I had once been punished for wanting became the beginning of my future. I learned to restore photographs, documents, letters, and family records that time had nearly destroyed. A face fading from paper could be brought back. A name almost lost could be read again. A torn image could be repaired without pretending the tear had never existed. Maybe that was why I loved the work. It did not ask damaged things to become untouched. It asked them to become whole enough to be held. After college, I moved to Portland, Oregon, because I wanted rain, green streets, and a city where nobody knew the Carver name. I built a quiet career restoring old family archives. People brought me boxes from attics and garages, albums stained by floods, letters burned at the edges, birth certificates folded into pieces. They trusted me with proof that they had existed. I never told most clients that I understood the fear of being erased better than they knew. In Portland, I met Ethan Rowe at a community exhibit where I had restored photographs from a demolished neighborhood. He was a landscape architect, steady in a way that did not feel forced. When I told him about the desert, he did not ask why I had not forgiven them. He simply said, "That should never have happened to you." By 27, I had a life that would have seemed impossible to the girl at Sagebrush Stop, a small apartment with plants on the windowsill, a studio that smelled like paper and clean dust, Sunday calls with Caleb and June, dinner with friends who did not punish silence, a husband who never left without telling me when he would be back and always meant it. I blocked every number my biological parents used. Most days, peace felt almost normal. Then my phone lit up with 113 missed calls and texts, and the people who had spent 15 years pretending I was the problem came looking for me like I was their last solution. The first messages were frantic but not loving. "Please answer. This is serious. You cannot ignore family forever. Your mother is sick. Your father needs help. We know your name now." That last one made my skin go cold. They knew my name now. Not the one they had thrown away, but the one I had built. I did not answer until a message came from a number I did not recognize. It was my younger sister, Talia. She had been too little to understand much when I disappeared, and for years I assumed she believed whatever story made our parents look innocent. Her message was short. "I know what they did. I read the records. I am sorry. Please call me only if you want the truth." So I called. Her voice was older than I expected, tired in a way I recognized. She told me our parents had lost almost everything. The towing business had collapsed after my father was sued over an illegal vehicle hold that exposed years of shady practices. The motel had been bleeding money for years, but the real damage came after my mother posted a self-righteous comment online about how children needed stronger discipline. Someone from Quartz Bend replied with 3 words, "Sagebrush Stop, remember?" That was all it took. People started talking. A former employee mentioned the security footage. A retired clerk hinted that the court records were real. Someone found an old local article about a child endangerment investigation involving a roadside business family. Then TikTok did what small towns used to do, only faster. The story spread. Customers stopped coming. Travelers left reviews calling the motel unsafe for families. Locals who once praised my parents for being tough suddenly acted shocked that toughness had looked exactly like abuse when nobody was watching. My father blamed cancel culture. My mother blamed jealous people. Neither blamed themselves. Talia told me she requested the court paperwork after having her own child and questioning every story they told about me. They had said I ran away. They had said foster parents manipulated me. They had said the state punished them for one harmless lesson. Then she read the report. She read about the gas station, the footage, the phone call, the refusal to return, and the pattern before it. She said she looked at her little boy sleeping and knew she would never let our parents teach him anything. She cut contact soon after. That was why they were calling me. Not because they had changed, because she was gone too. My mother was seriously ill. My father had debts. They needed money, signatures, help with medical paperwork, and most of all, a daughter willing to stand in public and make them look forgivable. Ethan told me I owed them nothing. June said the choice had to protect my peace, not their comfort. Caleb was quiet before saying some people only call a bridge important after they burn down every road behind them. I did not go back to save them. I went back because there was one last door in my life that still had their fingerprints on it, and I wanted to close it myself. I met them in a law office near the hospital, not at their home, because they no longer had one. My father looked smaller than memory. My mother looked sick, but still arranged, still trying to control the room with posture and tears. She said Elise when I walked in. I corrected her once. Mara. She pressed a tissue to her mouth like my name had wounded her. My father said they had made mistakes. I almost laughed, but I did not. I told him a mistake was missing an exit. A mistake was buying the wrong size shoes. What they did was leave a 12-year-old girl at a desert gas station without a phone, without water, and without a way home, then drive back slowly enough to make sure she knew they were laughing. My mother cried harder and said they only wanted me strong. I said no. You wanted me scared. You wanted to win a bet. The room went silent. For once, neither of them had a better word to hide behind. My father started talking about bills, signatures, reputation, and how people were destroying them over something from long ago. That was when I understood their regret. They were not grieving what they had done to me. They were grieving that it finally cost them something. My mother asked if I could forgive them before it was too late. I told her forgiveness was not a performance I owed to dying people who only found my number when they needed rescue. I told them I would not pay their bills. I would not sign false statements. I would not help repair their name. I would not become the obedient daughter in the final chapter of a story. They ruined themselves. My father asked if I was really going to abandon them. That word should have hurt. Instead, it clarified everything. I leaned forward and said, "You bet I could not find my way home." I did. It just was not yours. My mother sobbed. My father looked away. I stood up without shaking. At the door, I turned back once. I told them Talia had every right to protect her child. I told them Caleb and June were my parents. I told them the family I had now was not built on fear, tests, or locked car doors. Then I left. Revenge did not feel like screaming. It did not feel like destroying them. They had done that themselves with every choice they refused to name. Revenge felt like walking into the sunlight with nothing left to prove. On the flight home, I thought about the girl at Sagebrush Stop who believed being left behind meant she was not worth keeping. She was wrong. She had been unwanted by people who confused cruelty with strength, but she had never been unworthy of love. Abuse does not become education because someone calls it a lesson. Fear does not build character. Humiliation does not create resilience. Valuable knowledge is not taught by abandoning someone in danger. Real education teaches responsibility with safety, boundaries with respect, and strength without breaking the spirit of the person learning. Family is not proven by blood alone. It is proven by protection, honesty, accountability, and the willingness to make a child feel safe when the world is already hard enough. Walking away from people who hurt you is not always bitterness. Sometimes it is the healthiest decision you will ever make, and sometimes it is how you stop pain from being passed to the next generation. I did not leave that office empty. I left with my name, my peace, and the life I had built after they tried to make fear my whole story. If someone calls cruelty a lesson, maybe the real lesson is learning when to walk away. Have you ever had to choose peace over blood? Tell me in the comments.